Good morning and welcome to a really interesting webinar today, Revit Structure with Civil 3D. My name is Stan Henney. I'm the Business Development Manager here at CAD-1, but more importantly we have Brian J. Haley, PE, our Civil Engineering Specialist, and Brian D. Juge, AIA, one of our two architectural specialists here at CAD-1. So this will be a fun presentation. We have a few housekeeping slides to go over first. Most of you are familiar with webinars at this point, so you know the drill. If you want to minimize the console so you can see the whole screen, it's actually an orange and white arrow now, but you push that little arrow and move things over. There's a raise your hand button, which we always like to say, hey, raise your hand, hit the raise your hand button if you can hear us. So we kind of do a sound check and everything at the same time. We see that a gentleman by the name of Todd Hand raised his hand, so that's a good thing. Thanks everybody. It looks like most of you can hear us, and probably the most important thing, this will be kind of a full hour presentation today, but if you do have questions, please feel free to type them in. We will try to get them in context as much as possible, or do our best to get to them by the end of the webinar today. A couple things to bring up. Autodesk is running a free subscription for a year if you upgrade some of your older software, anything from 2013 and back. They're running that promotion through the 25th of April, so it's important this year to realize that as of February 1st next year, Autodesk will not upgrade any old software anymore. If you have an old seat of software, you just have to buy a new one. They will not be doing any upgrades. So this is the year, if you have older software, please, please, please do your best to get it upgraded, put it in your budget to get it upgraded and get on subscription. I know some people have not such good feelings about subscription, but that's the way things are going to be delivered in the future, and we want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Also, Autodesk has a minor, it's not terrible, but it is a price, and money's money, subscription price increase that takes effect March 28th. So if you have pending subscription renewals, please come into us before March 27th, essentially. And if your subscription renews in April or May or early June, you can also do an early renewal. Unfortunately, after 90 days out, Autodesk will not take the renewals. I'm sorry. We're just the messenger, please, on that one. But you can take advantage of the old pricing. Last thing I want to mention to you real quick is that you'll hear a lot. Autodesk has not released any actual dates yet. It's a little bit confusing, but the 2015 products are starting to come out, and they will not be delivered to you automatically. If you want a physical media, you have to go into your subscription center and request that the media be sent to you. Autodesk no longer sends it. It's all electronic download. We don't have anything to do with that. People call up and cuss at us because we didn't send them their box, and we'd love to, but we can't. So please do yourself a favor, and if you want the media, go to the subscription center and get it. We'll be doing a lot more on the 2015 software in the coming couple months here. So with that, let's go to, we have a unique student industry tools training program for students in colleges and universities, and we have some very special pricing and some other programs available, and we like to promote that because we know that the student market is very important to our industry and to yours, and we want to do our best to help those people coming out of colleges be aware of the software that they need to be productive in industry. So we'll talk about that. And last here, we've got a few of our upcoming classes on the Civil 3D side. We have a You can read them all. I don't have to read them all to you, but Civil 3D styles coming up. We have a grading class, pipe networks, hydrology and hydraulics, field to finish, Civil 3D fundamentals, and CAD to GIS classes all coming up. You can see the price. You can call our offices for more information. And then we have upcoming Revit classes, Revit Productivity, Revit Architecture Advanced, Structure Fundamentals, Architectural Fundamentals, another Architectural Fundamentals, and an MEP Fundamentals, all coming up here in the next month and a half. So please call us if you want more information or to sign up. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the Bryans and let them take the ball from here.
All right, thanks, Stan. So today we are talking Revit and we are talking Civil 3D. So I'm Brian Haley. I'm the Civil guy. I almost said Revit.
Far from it.
Yeah.
And I'm Brian Juge. I am the Revit guy.
Right. So today what we're going to be talking about is what can we do in Civil 3D, what can we do in Revit, and how can we combine the two and coordinate between the two. So the agenda that we kind of came up with, we're going to be spending a little bit of time with the bridge modeling tools. Even if you don't model bridges, you'll still want to take a look at these. Just trust me on that.
They're very, very nice tools to get into, and I think it's a lead-in for some other tools that may come out in the future, so you might see some similar ones coming out later on.
Possibly. So kind of where we're going to start off is I'm going to be working in Civil 3D, and I've got a roadway corridor already created. I'm going to create a bridge. So we got to span this little creek and going to put a bridge in there. We're then going to take the stuff that was done in Civil 3D and bring it into Revit. Now the important thing to note about this is even if you're not doing bridges, you can still use this tool to get your topo surface in Revit from the surface in Civil 3D. It's huge. Brian is then going to basically do the same thing I did. He's going to model a bridge in Revit, just like I modeled a bridge in Civil 3D. And he's going to export that bridge, and then we're going to bring it back into Civil 3D. We're then going to kind of deviate away from the bridge tools. You don't need the bridge tools for that last piece. We're going to talk about the shared coordinates between Civil 3D and Revit. Now, before we get going too far, I want to try to get an idea of who we are talking with here. So let's see. Yeah, we'll do this one first. So, what software do you use? Are you a Revit user? Are you a Civil 3D user? Do you do both? Neither?
Wow, coming in pretty slanted.
Yeah, I'm liking this slant.
Oh man, the Revit started strong and it's fallen off.
It did. It started strong.
Okay, let's post those.
So it looks like we got primarily Civil folks here, which is excellent.
I want to know who's using both. That's going to be an interesting one to get into. A couple using neither. Okay, well, let's get into our next poll in here.
All right, so how often do you need to share data between Civil 3D and Revit? You almost never have to do it. A few times a year, a few times a month. Do it every week.
Kind of get an idea of the audience out there. So what we should have added was a follow-up to whoever almost never does it. Which
Civil is
are they Civil or Revit? That would have been another one, because I have a feeling that the Revit guys would be like, yeah, we got to do this a lot, and the Civil guys are like, yeah, we just leave it for the other guys to do.
Yeah, so I agree. I probably, my gut says that the almost never folks are probably the Civil 3D folks.
Yeah, and then several times a year, probably the Revit guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a couple more polls in here.
So for those of you that do need to share the data, that are working with the sharing the data between each other, how difficult do you find it to be?
Or if you've ever done it at all.
Right, yeah. I mean, you find it so easy. It's a breeze. You know, maybe it's not too bad. You can do it, but it's not something you really like to do. Please don't make me do it again. And, well, that's why we have an intern.
And it's surprising how many times the intern has taken the lead here.
Always say, hey, little Billy, You want to be an engineer today? I've got a job for you.
Yeah.
Sorry if your name is Billy, but
Or if you're an intern.
no.
No. So it's kind of what I expected. I think most people really don't like to do this. I think once you know how to do it, it's not so bad. I don't think it's quite a breeze. But,
yeah, and there's definitely not a awesome 100%. Hey, here's the prescripted workflow. There's different illusions on what that could be, and we're going to hopefully break that down for you.
All right, and I think this is going to be our last one. Do you have a suite? Do you have one of the design suites? Do you have the building design suite? So Revit folks, you might have the building design suite. Civil 3D guys, you probably have an infrastructure design suite if you have that. So if you have a suite and you have Civil 3D, you have the infrastructure design suite.
If you have the one with Revit and AutoCAD, you probably have the building design suite. And this is actually going to be kind of critical for this workflow we're going to get into. And you're going to see why. You're going to almost want to have the infrastructure design suite to get this workflow done. So we'll see that those that do not are actually at a handicap.
Yep.
Okay, so here we are. We'll share those results on here. And
so about half and half building versus infrastructure.
Which is pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was obviously I was hoping to see more infrastructure since we had some of these Civil 3D on. Okay.
All right, so let's just get into it, shall we? So here I have my Civil 3D drawing, and I've got a roadway through here. Now I've just kind of trimmed out the area of interest, and I have a creek running through here, and I want to put in a bridge over the creek. So I've got a corridor. For you civil folks, what I've done is I have, actually I need to make a change here real quick, read up stuff. I have a region on my corridor that represents where the bridge is. I used the same cross-section. I didn't use a different assembly or anything. It's the same all the way through. I've just split out a region where I want my bridge. So in Civil 3D, when you install it, you get the bridge modeler. It's its own ribbon, and I'm going to do you get 3 different options for bridges here. I can do a concrete box girder, a concrete slab, or a concrete slab with girders. So I'm going to do the concrete slab with girders. All right, I get to choose the corridor. So I chose my favorite subdivision name of all times, Vista View Estates, for my corridor name.
View Estates.
Yes. This is a real subdivision in the city of Loveland, Vista View Estates. I actually took a picture of the sign. All right, which baseline from the corridor, and then which region from the corridor do you want to use to model the bridge? So that's why I had to split out that region. So I'll go ahead and grab the region. It's then going to ask me for the terrain surface. So this is the existing ground, not the design. All right, so I'm going to use the existing ground surface for my profile. Select OK, and basically at this point you just walk your way through the wizard. So the bridge layout. As you can see, I've got my abutments, and then it put into piers for me. So these green lines are the piers, red lines are the abutments. Down here I have 2 abutments and 2 piers.
Brian, if I could, there's
Yes.
a question here from Brian
Tomasi.
and asks, if you do not have the bridge modeler on the tab, what to do?
You have to install it. I believe it's from subscription.
Yeah, and you're also going to need it on the Revit end to take advantage of some of these tools in here. And we understand if you're not doing bridges, that's okay. Some of this stuff's still going to come into play. So
Yes.
It very much is going to come into play for if you're, say, trying to stick just a building model into a terrain. So, bear with us here.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, it does come from the subscription site.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
And you'll have it for both Civil 3D and Revit. You're going to need it on the Revit side too. So.
Yes. All right, so I can come in here and I can lay out the locations of my abutments, my piers, those types of things. So, well, looking at this, I'm not exactly sure where they're going to fall in the model yet. So I'm just going to use the default locations. And then you just start walking through the different parts of the bridge. How do you want the bridge to look? So I got the decks. So this is going to be the top piece of the deck. You know, how thick do I want the asphalt to be? I can put in some offsets left and right. I can put in the haunch heights. All right? I can also change the haunch type. So as you can see, as I make the changes to the haunch type, the graphics down here change, showing me the different pieces or the different configurations and dimensions. I go to my roadways, the same concept. Right? How do I want my roadways to be set up? There's only one option for the roadway type for this particular type of bridge. The barriers. Do you want to display the barriers? Do I want my barriers to be sloped or not sloped? So I want it to be perpendicular to the
vertical
road, or I want it to be perpendicular to gravity. All right, so how do you want that to be set up? The girders, how do you want the girders to be laid out? I mean, this is, I'm not going to go through and change a whole bunch of stuff, but as you can see, we got different changes, options for the girder spacing, different options for the girder symmetry, right?
And it should also be noted that these tools are actually similar in Revit too. So what you're seeing in here is going to be a similar dialogue to go in there, and we'll just show that briefly in the Revit. I won't get into it as much as Brian is here.
Yeah, and so because I'm putting in 2 piers, I actually have 3 sets of girders, from abutment to the pier, from the pier to pier, and then from the pier to the abutment. So I can change each one of these individually. I don't have to set them up to be the same. The girder types, how do you want the girders to be modeled? All right, so if you notice under my symmetry type, I don't get any options for it. But if I change my girder type to steel, I can now put in different symmetry types. And then I can change my height types. I will use a 2-arc beam. Ooh, that looks cool. All right? I'm going to change this back to concrete. I'm more of a concrete guy myself. The abutments. So I have 2 abutments. Right? I have my abutment types, abutment with wings or not with wings, right? Just straight abutments. And then I can change each one individually. So I want the second abutment to be the same. I can copy from the first. If not, I can uncheck that, and then I can maybe make this one have the wings. I can put in different angles for the wings and all sorts of fun things here. So I'll just copy that from the first. Same thing for the piers. I can go in and model each type of pier. Right? And then the bearings as well. So I have bearings at the abutments. I have a bearing at each one of the piers, and then the final abutment as well. So it's real simple. I go through, I set up the parameters and everything the way I want, select OK, and it goes through and it creates the bridge for me. And what this did is it created 3D solids here in my drawing. So let me get some layers in here that's going to kind of mess me up. Let me freeze something, and then I'll just quickly grab this, pull this off into my object viewer, and you can see it is indeed a 3D solids. So this is what it created. If I grab a piece and I list it, all right, you can see this is a 3D solid here. And each different component comes in on its own. So I can grab just this beam here, or this component here. So if you want to, you can take this bridge into Navisworks, do some clash detection with it, do just about whatever you want. But I've got a slight issue here. This pier happens to fall right in the middle of the string. Oh, that's not good. I don't like that. The rest of the piers are fine, but this pier I need to adjust. I need to adjust it, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet to the north. And I'd kind of like to align it a little bit more with the direction of flow. So once the bridge is created, I'll just go create the bridge again. I'll do the bridge concreteless girders, but instead of creating a new bridge, I'm going to edit the bridge that's already here. So I'll grab the bridge, just grab any part of the bridge, brings up my bridge tools again, and I can come in here and make some changes. So my second pier right now is at 558.772. I'm going to make this 568. So I adjusted the pier, and then I'm going to skew it 18 degrees. So you can see that the pier is now skewed. The rest of everything else I'm going to leave the way it is. I'll select OK. And now you can see the pier is skewed and adjusted over.
And Brian asks, can you pick on screen? Can you make the picks on screen?
Can you make the picks on screen? I don't believe you can.
I'm with you. I think they have to be done in the dialog boxes.
Yeah, so this is not like a typical Civil 3D dialog box where you can pick on the screen. You just need to type in the value.
Yeah, sad. We're all sad on that too.
Yeah. If you want, you can add additional piers. You can remove a pier. You can, say for example, I remove all the piers, right? And then I want to add a couple more piers in. As you can see, they start like piling up at the end. Once you get them in, hit arrange, and it'll distribute them through the bridge.
But one of the reasons you have to kind of look at is that the dialog box is actually talking to two separate programs, and two actually very different programs with Revit and then Civil 3D. So that's why part of the reason you can't make the picks in the native program. You have to have an interface between the two.
And in addition to that, all these different solids in here or components in Revit are connected together, and so it's adjusting not only the piers and stuff, but each individual support member for the bridge itself, and kind of arranging everything. You can see there each beam is split at the pier level, so it's got a number of different parts that are being arranged at the same time. We'll see some of these the structural elements we brought over into Revit, and a lot of them will have analytical models built into them and trying to size these correctly. So not everything, but we'll see that come into the Revit side too.
So really quickly, you can get a schematic design for your bridge, and you're not going to be doing the structural engineering in Civil 3D, but you can in Revit. So I'm going to pass this off now to Brian.
All righty.
And he's going to then take this into Revit.
Okay, so we're going to go in and start with just a new model in here. So I'm going to go in and start with my structural template. And now I'm going to go in, and the first thing I need to do is, I should do the coordinate system, by the way.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay, so we won't go into that. Because I want to point out that this particular tool, which we're going to get into, cannot use the coordinate system there's a coordinate system that's built in that we can carry over, but the bridge tool doesn't quite use it. But we're going to talk about how we can leverage the information we get inside. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to integrate with AutoCAD Civil 3D. But before I go any further, I want to point out that at this point, what I need to do is I need to have both the Civil file open that I'm carrying things from and the Revit file open. So for this workflow to take place, you need to have both programs on your machine, and you must have the drawing open in which you're importing the Civil information over with the bridge tool already built inside. So everything that Brian's already built in there would need to be done and take place. So for those of you that just have Revit and don't have Civil 3D, sad faces all around. That's what I'm going to say on that.
Yeah.
Okay. But now that
if you have a friend that has Civil 3D in the Infrastructure Design Suite, they have Revit structure and they can do this.
Correct. And a good bottle of scotch or some good rum tends to work wonders in getting this thing in here. And if they don't have Civil 3D or Revit, hey, you've got two shots at this. You can go in, download the trial, and just practice that workflow just to get it down back and forth between the two disciplines. But as always, we'd encourage you, hey, go pick up a suite that carries both products in there. So we're going to go over into the Civil side, and I'm going to integrate with AutoCAD Civil 3D. Again, I'm looking to have that file open. So here I see the project, the roadways that Brian has open in the Civil 3D. I'm going to import those particular files from Civil 3D. And then I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to turn off the actual maintenance building. We have a maintenance building that we're going to show present in here, but I'm going to turn that off and leave everything on. So I have the corridor, I have the surface, and I have the actual bridge model itself that was built in there. Okay. Then I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to kind of start compiling that information over and create all these different things. And we'll see different parts pop up as this goes along in the screen. Dum, 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 dum. There we go. Okay, so we have the road configuration. We can see that's just limited to the bridge itself. We could try to get the rest
If we
of
didn't do
it
the bridge.
to the rest. I'm sorry.
If we didn't bring the bridge in,
Yeah,
we'd be able to select different parts of the road.
but because we have the bridge itself, it's limiting itself to the bridge. If you don't have a bridge, we can bring in the entire roadway, and I could go in here and select different start and end segments for this. But again, because it's on the bridge, we're limited to the bridge at this point. We can see the horizontal alignment, how that's coming in, the vertical profile. Yeah, this is all civil stuff and everything else, the cross section of the road itself. But what I'm really interested in is the topography. And this is one that comes in unchecked. And we have to go in here and check this out. So I'm going to come inside. I'm going to bring in the active topography. So I have to come in and select this. Then I'm going to pick which surface I'm using, the existing grade or existing ground. And then I'm going to pick a Revit material. Okay, right now at the defaulted air, that's the top of the list. I'm just going to come down inside, and I'm going to come over and pick earth. Okay, now that I have the earth in here. Now this is the entire topo surface. If I wanted to, I can actually just get a limited area. As many of you in Revit know, we're limited to the size and the scope of what we can bring inside. We're limited to about that 2-mile radius. I know it goes to 20, but we get funky things happen outside the 1-2 mile radius in here. So if I wanted to, I can go in there and adjust that topography by just clicking on this button here, and you'll see there's a rectangle. I can go inside and change this and give it 80 degrees. I can go in and change this form around and say this is 5,000 or whatever, and adjust the different area. We can see that's changing in here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bring in the whole surface. Brian and I have kind of already pre-planned that this surface would be great. But if you're bringing in an entire city or in a huge neighborhood or something like that, we're going to have to cut that out. And we can do it on our end and not rely on the Civil 3D to have that set up for you. So you have this tool in here. Okay. Once I've picked all this, and again, make sure I've had that active topography inside, I can bring in that particular surface in here. So I'm going to,
okay,
yeah.
Go back.
And then there's another thing that we're going to point out is that what happens when we bring it in here is that it's going to center this topo surface on my origin point in Revit. Okay. And that's the default that's set up in the bridge tool. And that's the one that at first Brian and I kind of were struggling with and going, we were expecting to get this to coordinate and have some coordination between it, and it didn't quite do it right away. So what we ended up finding out is the project center is at the geometric center point of the surface or of the alignment of the road. Am I correct?
Yeah, of the data that we're bringing in.
Of the data we're bringing in, which is the road information in here. So instead of doing it at the center of the road, what we found we can do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select this, and I know that the edge of my road is here at 441.5, and I'll zoom in here. Oh, it's actually not there for it. 441.5. Oh, it switched on me. So now I can see if I move this around, I get a little alignment dot to change in, and this is going to be where my origin point is going to be, and I can move that around. You can see move over to the 500. So I'll switch it back in here just to show you that we can adjust this. So there's it at 45, and I'll just come back and make it to the one I want, which is right there. So that's going to be right where the bridge starts in my alignment. So with that knowledge, at least I've got a starting point there to adjust how the topo surface, how the bridge, and how the road is being brought in. Okay. So hopefully you guys are following along on that. And now I'm going to hit OK and bring that inside. Okay, and I'll show it in a second. I'll show reveal hidden elements, and we can see where the origin point was put in. All right. So here I've got, all right, come on, Revit. Finishing it on up. Run through a couple of those dialogues. Okay, so here I've got my topo surface. I've got the element, the start of the bridge in here, and I'm just going to come over and do reveal hidden elements and show us right now we've got our project base point is placed right here at the edge of the road. And then by selecting that project base point, we can see, here is the project base point, the shared data from the site that was brought over. So I do see, yes, I am starting to get some coordination in here between the two projects to have this project base point put it where I want it to be. So I'm going to go to Zoom Extension here and just show you that here's a surveyor point back at our origin, and we'll take a little bit of advantage of this in a bit. Now I'm going to just come back in and finish the bridge portion of this exercise. Okay. So I'm going to come back in here and go into the third one. And try to remember which one. The concrete bridge, that's right, because that's what we're building in here. And bring up this similar dialogue that we brought up before in Civil 3D.
So this is the bridge that I modeled in Civil 3D. And as you can see, when it's brought into Revit, it has the same geometry as what I had in Civil 3D. It has that skew angle on that one pier. So all that information was brought over from Civil 3D into Revit Structure, where we can now start doing some structural analysis, throw some rebar in, and etc. once we get the bridge model.
Yeah, once
Revit.
we finish this tool in here. And if you're like, many people out there, if you don't trust that what was generated by the engineer, the civil engineer, and structured like, wow, we could do this with one pier or something else, I can go back in and change all that. So if I want to go back into piers and the abutments, change this information inside, you can see these dialogues look very similar to what Brian was putting in before. So we have pretty much the same information in here as far as laying this out and arranging this. So I'm not going to go through all this, but you can see it's pretty much the same dialogue we saw before. And I can build this bridge element in here just like they could in Civil 3D. So I'm just going to accept what we have inside and hit OK. And then it's going to run through that and create those Revit families for me. Okay. And I'll show a little bit of what those families look like inside the project here once we get done. So you can see on either end of the programs, whether you're in Civil 3D or whether you're in Revit Structure, you can go in and model this bridge from either program. And we can share that information over that was created from the civil engineer where the bridge starts on that alignment, on that road, and then model it in either program in here. So here I'm just accepting what the default and creating the families from the AutoCAD solids that were over there. And so it's doing that conversion for me. So right off the bat, we're getting a really nice workflow of this part in here, at least something I'm somewhat happy with initially.
Yep. And as you can see, it takes a bit longer in Revit than it does in Civil 3D, and it's just because Revit has to go through and create all these fairly detailed families that Civil 3D just needed to create solids. So
yeah.
That's why it's taking longer here.
And we've got the analytical model that's coming in for a lot of those parts in here. We'll see it jumping around on the page a little bit. But rest assured, when this is all done, there we go. I'm getting some of my slightly off axis inaccuracies in here, but oops, ignore that for a second. And I'm just going to go in and hit my doghouse. And just if we zoom in, we can start to see, do some thick lines in here. Yeah, we are getting our analytical model built into this particular thing, at least on the beam ends in here. So I've got some of those parts in here. If I start selecting some of the abutments, let's see if we can tab in. Some of these parts in here, I'll start being able to do rebar, stuff like that inside here, but not getting it right now. So I think it's just a matter of the material hasn't been identified inside. So I start going in, assign these as different. I'm just going to do the base concrete, not any of the structural bound concrete in here. So I'm able to start going in and putting the different materials in. I've got the barrier left. Let's see if I can get in. I'll do a hidden line in here so we can just kind of see a little bit more of what this looks like. So I got my surface. Let's see if I can get my road on here. I've got my deck that's coming in, and we can see, well, what are they looking at in here? And it's just a deck. It's not really a road surface. So there might be some things we need to go in and kind of change or flip over a little bit inside. But I've got some initial stuff in here, and I'm able to pick and choose some of this stuff in here. At least I've got the different beams that I can go in and start working with.
And one thing I'd like to point out here real quick is this cross-section came from Civil 3D, and it came from the corridor in Civil 3D. So if my corridor in Civil 3D has super elevation on it, that super elevation road section would come through into Revit for the bridge modeling as well. So all of that information transfers from Civil 3D into Revit. And even if you don't have a bridge, you can still use this tool to simply transfer the topo. You saw how easy that was to do. All you have to do is have the Civil 3D drawing open, have Revit open, use the Civil structures tool command, and you can bring that topo into Civil 3D or into Revit.
Some of the functionality, and I've seen it in earlier trials that we did, was able to get it in the rebar. In the case that if I am not able to, I can simply go in and start doing structural walls, doing the different surfaces in here and creating, or I have to start with the architectural wall by face, creating that different surface in here, put some foundation footings on, stuff like that, if I'm worried about using the rebar in here. You can see initially I'm not able to do that right now, but like I said, I was able to do that some parts, so there might be some functionality we need to play with. But it's a simple change. Go in, redo the wall surface. You have a surface clearly to put in here to build, rather than using this pier family that really doesn't have any structural properties other than the sizes and stuff. So we can have that, at least the beams are coming in with the analytical model in here. Oh.
Now, can you export that out to CAD for me, Brian, so that I can use it back into my Civil 3D model?
Of course. So now that I've got this model in here, I'm going to go back into my site plan where I have that bridge and stuff inside, and I'm going to go in to my export, go into my CAD formats, and I'll
actually, if you don't mind me driving here real quick,
or I've got the extensions.
Yes, the extensions.
So go back in, and
so I'm going to switch back over here to Civil 3D real quick. So this is the Civil Brian talking again, and I'm just going to create a brand new blank drawing here. I'm going to assume this is the drawing that was created. You know, this is my. Actually, let me go ahead and do that. Let me close out of this, and I'm going to open up that drawing again. The same one that we used to create the road in, the bridge in, but it's not going to have the bridge. So we're going to assume that Brian created the bridge in Revit without me creating the bridge in Civil 3D. So in Revit, we can use the integration with AutoCAD Civil 3D again, but this time, instead of bringing data in from Civil 3D into Revit, we can push it the other direction. I can export bridges to Civil 3D. And now back in Civil 3D, I have my bridge. This is the bridge that came from Revit, not the one I created in here. So one thing to note, though, is if I come over here and I say, hey, I want to go ahead and edit this bridge, it's going to say, it's going to bring me back to Revit to edit the bridge. Instead of editing it in Civil 3D now, because this bridge was created in Revit, it now needs to be edited in Revit. All right? So, that's how we can use some of the bridge tools. Now, what we're going to do next is we've got a maintenance building. And this maintenance building is going to go right here. So, I'm here in Civil 3D. Brian has sent me his building, and I have placed it on the site where it needs to go. I now want to be able to get this drawing and be able to bring it into the maintenance building Revit file. And I want the drawing to line up with the Revit model. So what we have is we have this tool over here. Again, you can load this from the subscription. It's in one of the productivity packs. You'll need to download this for both Civil 3D as well as Revit.
Yes.
All right, so same as the bridge tools, you have to download both pieces. So here in Civil 3D, I'm going to execute the shared reference points and watch your command line. This tripped us up at first when I was first playing with it. That's why I've got this 1 and this 2 here, because I said I'm going to pick here, I'm going to pick here, but no, I have to watch my command line. That's why I teach my students all the time, watch your command line, and I wasn't watching my command line. So it's going to ask for the origin point. So this is the point in Revit that you're going to pick. So this building actually has a little eave or overhang sticking out here. I guess it's to give the maintenance worker shade. I'm not exactly sure, but it's got something out here, right? So, but in the Revit model, that is pointing to the left or to the west. here. It's pointing to the east. So this is, I'm going to pick this point here as my reference point. And now it's asking, select a point on the y-axis. This is the Revit y-axis.
That's due north.
That's due north, quasi-north.
And this one really you have to pay attention to and watch out, because this one had us tripped up for a little bit.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, until we actually read
the dialogue,
watched the command line.
Why would you read the command line?
I know what it does, right? So this is now asking. So it's got the origin, it's got the rotation, and it's asking, hey, what units are the drawing in? So this drawing is in feet. Select OK, and it's going to ask me to save this file here. So I'm just going to call this one CAD-1 webinar shared coordinates. It's going to save it as an XML file. I'll go ahead and save that. And now I'm going to send that XML file and drawing over to Brian. And now he's going to be able to use that in Revit when he wants to bring in that link that CAD file into his Revit model.
All right. So now I'm going to go into the actual model. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to get my maintenance building. Here's my beautiful maintenance building. We can see in 3D, this is the beautiful building that I brought inside. So I'm going to go to the site plan. I've got this lovely design, and we can see here's that overhang that's on the left-hand side of the building. We can see inside here that I've put my project base point down at the bottom of this location, and that was that location too that Brian had selected on in Civil and 3D. So I've had some coordination in here. This is one of the things that's going to help us out a lot if you're not doing this in Revit already, is to move that project base point into something that's known in here. So even in my template model, I have either a grid or a reference plane that identifies where this project base point is, and that's just going to help you out for coordinating across any projects that you do, especially in your building environment. Okay, so now that I have this set up and ready to go, I'm going to go over to my add-ins, and here I have the imported shared coordinates from the XML file. Okay, this is the file that I have to go in and download, just like the civil engineer has to go in and grab for their portion. So I'm just going to simply execute this command, and then it's going to ask me a couple series of questions. It says select origin point to align. So I'm going to come down in here and select the same point that I need to have, and then it says again select the Y up direction to align to. So I'm going to come in here and select up here at this midpoint. So it's just asking for direction. Now I brought it up. I have his file that he's emailed over to me, and I just simply select the file and hit open. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm establishing shared coordinates, and I hit yes. It's successfully done it. Great. Thank you, Revit, for letting me know you've succeeded. Congratulations. So I brought that in here, and I have my coordinates system selected. Okay, and if I come inside, I select on my project base point, what I'll find out is really nothing's happened. What I have to remember is that I have two project base points in here. Okay, so the next part is actually use those coordinates that I've set up. So now I'm going to go in the Manage tab, and I'm going to go over to Location, I'm going to go over to the Site Plan, and I can see in here, here's that internal points, and up above, there is the CAD Webinar Shared Coordinate System that Brian has conveniently given me. So I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to select that, I'm going to make that current. Okay, got that information in and hit OK. Now we can see if I come over here and I select the project base point, there is the shared data giving me the angle of true north, elevation, everything else that I'm looking for. So now I've got this inside. So the next step I'm going to do is he's provided me with the topo. So I'm going to go in and import the topo into the site plan. And for the topo to be done, to bring it inside, it has to be done as a CAD drawing, not as a Civil 3D drawing, to get this CAD information over. Am I correct on that, Brian?
That's right. So for those of you that are using Civil 3D, in order for the structural or the architect or whoever's using Revit to be able to process and use your surface, you have to take that surface and export it out as an AutoCAD drawing. Now, ideally, and we didn't do this in this case, you want to display the surface as your triangles. That way, when they create the topo surface, they're creating it from the triangles. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the differences between how Revit creates a surface and the way Civil 3D creates a surface.
Oh, yes.
Civil 3D, we create our 10 models all the time. It works great. Revit does not look at the triangles. It does not look at the break lines. All it looks at is the points. So for those of you that use Civil 3D, you can imagine taking all of your triangles, creating points on those triangles, and then creating a surface from those points. That's what you're going to get in Revit. It does not honor the triangle edges.
I always equate this to is in Revit, it just looks for the point and looks for the nearest points near it around itself and says, okay, we connect together.
Exactly.
Even if they don't in Civil 3D, Revit just interprets that as just, hey, you're near me, let's hold hands. And that's kind of how the whole process works out.
Yep, it is a pure Delaney triangulation method with no alterations. Now, if you get into an area where your Revit topo surface is drastically different than your civil topo and your civil surface, what you can do is you can go in and you can add additional data to the Civil 3D surface. All right, so basically what you can do, and let's do this real quick, just go create points on a grid in this area. So this is the area that I need the additional detail on. Get the elevation from the surface, and then add them to the surface. And then export that out. So Brian asks, so in Revit it can triangulate any way it wants? Well, basically it just goes through the basic Delaney triangulation method. It draws circles around the points, and it triangulates between circles that don't have points, any points in it. So if you're interested in the way that it triangulates, go check out Wikipedia, do a search for the Delaney triangulation method. It'll make you the hit at your next party.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be, hey, did you guys hear about the latest with the Delaney triangulation method? So, you know, it's if you want to get an idea of what it's doing, check that out. It's a pretty good article.
And for those in layman's terms, it's just looking at the nearest point to the other nearest point. It's
Basically,
really all it does. It doesn't honor any other boundary lines or anything like that, or whatever you guys call it.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
One
so,
person got your joke there, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, so just you know, and it's good that we have this discussion. You're going to need to have that dialogue with your civil engineer, saying, "Hey, I need to break down this surface. I need to understand because it didn't come in and create this creek for me. It came in and just made this all over as one particular surface." So those of you in Revit have to have that knowledge. Hey, you know what? Go in, break this down into more points in here, triangulate this even more, get this surface to be more complicated, really, is what you're asking for, and then send me back the file, okay? So you want to understand how they're doing so we can request that information back from them and say, hey, I need something that's a little bit more complex in here. So two things we're requesting: a smaller area, a smaller topography, so I don't have 5 miles or 10 miles away for that particular topo surface that I'm getting, and two, right in the area where I'm talking about I need that information, break that down even more, whether it's where my building pad is, or my road, or my embankment. This is going to make your topo surface a little bit easier to handle inside of Revit. Okay, so getting back into Revit, I have that information in here. You can see the stuff starting to coordinate. Now I'm going to go in and I'm just simply linking the CAD file. Okay, so again, on the civil side, Brian went in and made a CAD file. If you from Civil 3D, cannot be a civil file, even with proxy graphics. We'll be able to see it in Revit, but I can't make a topo surface in it with the proxy graphics in there. It must be a true AutoCAD file. Okay, so I'm going to go in and link that CAD file, and here's the ACAD roadways I'm putting it in here.
That's the file that I exported out of my Civil 3D file as an AutoCAD file.
Correct. And inside here, I don't really care about colors or anything too much on this. I'm going to make it in all my views, so not the current view only. The one thing I'm going to make sure I don't click on is this correct lines that are slightly off axis. For those of you that may have used Revit a while back, this is kind of a newer feature. It's been out for about 3 years now. What it does is it corrects it from aligning everything to orthogonal base. So it keeps the alignments the way they are. This was a problem earlier on within Revit where anybody bringing in civil stuff or landscape plans, this was really causing a lot of heartache. But now they have this thing where I can uncheck that feature and make life a heck of a lot simpler, especially when your true north was off by, you know, let's say it's 0 degrees, 200 minutes, and 10 seconds or something like that, or Even though
That's a
I
lot
know,
of minutes.
That's a lot of minutes on there. I know. I threw out a random number and it was pretty too random. Okay. So the last thing is when I'm going in, make sure my position, I've got the shared coordinates in here, so I'm going to go and do by shared coordinates, and then I'm just going to hit open in here. Come inside. All right. Yeah, close this. And now I've got that surface in here, and I can see, there's that building on the pad. I brought it inside. I can see, hey, there's that coordinate point that Brian had put in here, and I've got that alignment, and I say, hey, that's great. It happens to be upside down, and that's because it's based on Project North, and Project North is almost due south. So we wanted to kind of show you that in here. So I'm going to go in and switch that to the orientation to Project due north. Hit apply, and there I have my building, my maintenance building on the side of the road in here, and we can look at that in the 3D portion, and we'll see that inside. The one thing we'll point out is that the only thing it doesn't quite do is get the elevation in here. That's the only part that we have to go in and correct on that. But that's the last part that need to be done. That's pretty simple to do in here for that. So I'm not going to get into all that, but I think most of us understand how to do that within our project. It's kind of an alignment command. But here you can see, if I go to the top view, there it is, aligned exactly where I want it to be on my orientation in there. So how cool is that? You know, that's pretty interesting in there. What are we doing on time?
We've got about 8 minutes left or so.
All right, so there we've seen bringing all those points together. I think we had one. We're going to show them we don't have enough time for the last part.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think what we should do is I think we should just open up for questions.
Well, we do have a question here. Garfield asks, can you comment about the meaning of the pop-up messages you got when importing the shared coordinates civil topo drawing file? You had those dialog box pop up, and he's asking kind of what did those mean?
Well, let's run through them again, and then I'll quickly look at them to see what's going on. That would help, and because I was kind of ignoring them, and I apologize on that, and probably should run through that. I know a lot of the times we've been looking at these. Oh, actually, yeah, it helps to select the file. There we go. So it's just saying some elements were lost during the import. I don't know if that was an alignment line or something like that. Some civil information that was in the CAD that I'm going to lose in here. Having to do with proxy graphics in here. So in this case, it was a proxy graphics issue that the CAD didn't have, or the CAD interpolation from Civil 3D to AutoCAD to Revit, I lost something in there. I don't know exactly what that is, and they're telling me to set my proxy graphics to one that might clean it up. Okay, so that's the first warning that comes in here. This project is linked and do not share the same coordinate system. The link's world coordinates will be aligned with the project's shared coordinate system. So on the Revit side, it's a big because we don't really deal in world coordinate system in here. We have shared coordinates, which are basically the Revit coordinates or the project base point inside. Revit does not care about state plane systems or any of that other stuff in here. So any of that was established in the Civil 3D side gets lost in translation in this point.
And basically, this is what we wanted. This is saying, hey, we're going to align the drawings coordinate system, the world coordinate system, with the shared coordinates. And that's why we went through the whole process of importing the shared coordinates, is so that it would do this. And that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here.
Yes. And that's what's getting in here. What this other information is, and I frankly don't think we have enough time for it, but we've established another system, and actually, maybe we can try to do this, for bringing this file in. So let's go in.
Just a second, we got another question here.
Okay.
When the CAD is importing in this method, does the CAD quote jitter, quote unquote, due to the CAD origin, or does the shared coordinates take care of that issue?
Okay, when the CAD is imported, I guess I'm not understanding the jitter portion of the question.
Dale, if you could maybe type in a clarification on that, might be helpful. The old 20 mile away from the base point issue.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I believe it does.
I'm sorry?
I said I believe it does because it is bringing it in towards the origin of Revit, right?
Yes. So if we look at, here is the project base point inside of Revit, and that's one of the points that we want to establish. And there was also the 20 mile from the original shared base point system that we need to respect too, which the surveyor point at this point in time is set to. At this point in time is set to right here, and we want to be inside that. So we do have to respect the old 20 mile or 2 mile radius from that base point in here, or we are going to start seeing some of those issues happen on the graphics side, or losing elements because we're too far away. Those particular weirdness is going to happen.
Hey, Brian, so what happens if you go back to your manage and change back from the shared coordinate system to the project coordinate system? So you go change your location?
Oh, and use the internal coordinate system?
Yeah, instead of the shared one. Does it mess anything up?
It's just going to set this up. These are going back to...
So I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not going to respect that at all. We have to use the shared coordinate system at this point in here. And this is going to have a little bit of dialogue on how to rectify that. So I just hit undo. Where I see a big potential of this being rectified, it has to do with our other topo system. So I'm going to get back to the other one in here, and I think this is important and kind of a key to point out. Here is the bridge model that we did earlier. Remember that we did the bridge model that they have the origin set right here on this. So this origin is bringing into the center of the model for that particular system inside. And we've got this still that respected surveyor point. But this is another way of handling that within the model. So if I wanted to, I can then bring in the Revit model inside this project. And let me go back and turn that other one off or get rid of this. So we can see this is how to bring in the topo surface directly into the building. Now I'm going to bring the building into the topo surface built from the Revit model. So I'm going to go in here. I'm not going to save this particular project. I'm inside this building here. I have a coordinate system, so I'm going to go inside and go to Insert, and I'm going to link the Revit file in, and I'm going to grab the maintenance building in here. Grab the shared coordinates, and I've got the shared coordinate system. It's going to default to the center point. Okay, why did it do that? Well, that maintenance building doesn't have shared coordinates. It's going to bring it in. So this is how we figured out how to work around this particular thing, and I should have a model brought in here. So there's that particular model system. I'm going to go in and turn on and get to the project base point. So if I can get in here and get to that project base point, actually bring inside that model. So let me go back to my site plan and get it to a wireframe in here. Where's that building at? Okay. So we've got this in here, and I remember doing this once before. We're going to go in and bring in this surveyor point. Now I'm getting lost again. To where I need it to be. So this building kind of messed up. I need to have that brought into the 0 point. Let me go back and hit undo one more time. Link building. I'm just going to bring it in, center to origin. Okay. Already exists. Go make sure I get kill this, remove it. Now I'll bring it back in. So I can't use a shared coordinate system. I'm just going to go in and bring this in origin to origin. Okay. And I've got the origin point in here. And what I can end up doing is then going back to my Civil 3D and entering in, this is the import data for that building, and have it rotate and place this building in the position I want in there. It takes a little, just takes a little bit of time putting that data inside. But that's really coming in, having this coordinate system going down. But you're going to have the civil engineer establish where that base point is going to be and linking this particular project in. We can see in here that this is, right about here is the start of that bridge. That's where or right here is the origin point of that bridge. And then I'm going to pick the origin point for the building. The reason we did the start point of the origin for the bridge here in Civil 3D is because, remember, the bridge tool brings the model in either at the center, or we can dictate where along the alignment that origin point's going to be. Okay, so it's going to want to try to put that in the center of the Revit alignment or the Revit origin, or we can dictate it another place for it to be, and we picked a specific spot on here. So we're unfortunately we're getting close to the end of the time here. Yeah, hopefully you guys have found this as a useful tool for bringing these points in here. I know if you have more questions, we can do some more follow-up on these particular tools inside.
And that's the important thing. If you do have additional questions, please send them to us or whatever. And if you'd like us to see us kind of extend this a little bit, we'd be happy to do some of that as well. Brian Haley, do you have any kind of wrap-up comments here?
No, I think with a little bit of dialogue between the architect or the structural engineer and the civil engineer, it's really not too bad to be able to bring data back and forth between each other, between the two programs, especially with that the shared coordinates tool that we have now with Revit and Civil 3D.
Yeah, so take a look at those tools coming out, and also under any additional tools that come in the future from Autodesk. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed.
And finally, this webinar has been recorded. We will have it posted on our YouTube channel and the archives page of our website, where you can access it in the next few days. It usually takes a couple, 3 days for us to post-process it and get it posted, so sometime next week or the following. And if you have any questions, get a hold of us. Otherwise, we hope this was helpful to you today. Thanks very much for joining us. Talk to you soon.